Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Advisor with Stacey Chillemi. Today, I'm very excited because we have a very special guest today. We have Lori McDowell, and she is going to talk about fear and limited beliefs and how to retrain the unconscious mindset. She also has a podcast show on our channel, so I want you to go check it out. She has great advice, and she talks about the mindset and different things to help improve your life. So check out her podcast. And you could also find her on The Advisor with Stacey Chillemi. And she's also on YouTube, also her videos. So I really highly suggest that you go and listen to her videos, her podcast, because you'll get a lot out of them. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you want to hear more about different ways to improve your overall life. So, Lori, it's such a pleasure to have you back. And I love this topic about fear and overcoming fear and about the unconscious mind and tell us a little about, our fear and our limited beliefs and retaining the unconscious mindset. What does that all mean to you?
Sure, Stacey. Well, I'm glad to be here first off. Thank you for having me back. So, fear and our limiting beliefs, everybody wants success, everybody wants fulfillment. And often we think that there are external factors that are keeping us from getting what we want. When in reality, most of the time it's us keeping us from getting what we want. And the external factors are more like symptoms or things that we even cause some of them ourselves.
Yes.
And almost, we all have these negative emotions, and pretty much all the negative emotions stem from fear. So,
Hmm.
if you have anxiety, that's fear of the future. If you have, imposter syndrome, that's fear of not being good enough. They're all about fear, and fear is really interesting because fear has a very good purpose. Fear is supposed to protect us.
Right.
Yet fear is supposed to be kind of a warning signal where you see something, you fear it, and then you figure out what to do and you get rid of it. Like in the, back prehistoric man would see a tiger and feel fear, and they would either, climb a tree or throw something at the tiger or run away, and it would go away.
Right.
Yet now that we don't have all those threats, we end up living in those fears, and having those fears really limit us, and it stops us from getting what we really want. And we don't do that consciously. We do
Yeah.
it, subconsciously in our unconscious mind, which, we were just talking about this earlier, how we think we're in control, but really over 90% of our thoughts and decisions and things we happen are unconscious. So they happen in our unconscious mind, which the prime purpose of the unconscious mind is to keep you alive, is to protect you. So while that's trying to keep you alive, it doesn't really care if you're happy or successful or fulfilled or any of the things that make life worth living.
Yeah.
So that's why we really have to address those fears and look at our unconscious mind and what's holding us back, and release those things.
Oh, 100%. Now, how does someone go deep down into their unconscious mind and really figure out what's going on? Because a lot of times, people don't realize that our unconscious mind plays such a role in our lives. And, what are some tools and techniques that you suggest that people could, when they start feeling anxiety and fear and these symptoms are occurring, how do they go back into their unconscious and really figure out what's going on and figure out a solution.
Okay, yeah. Ideally you have someone help you, because it's a lot easier if you have someone lead you through that. And
Yeah.
one of my favorite quotes is, "You can't read the label from inside the jar." So if you're trying to do that,
Yeah.
it's a lot harder. Having someone help you, lead you through things, is the easiest way. And we can talk about it. But there are some things you can do on your own that really help. The first is meditation and mindfulness practices. Those are so important to do them, to take that time and just to spend that time with yourself, with your mind. Just think, not even thinking, just being and just seeing what comes up. So doing that, even as little as 5 minutes a day can help, but longer, is better. And so many people say, "Oh, I can't meditate, or I get distracted." It's like everyone gets distracted. It doesn't matter. Just, if a thought comes into your head, just see it and let it go,
Right.
and take that time. You can use guided meditations. There's free apps. There's ones on YouTube. Just do a search. Insight Timer is a really good app that has a lot of meditations. So that's one really good tool. And another good tool that goes along with meditation is journaling. Bless you.
Thank you.
Yeah. After you journaling, especially after a meditation, because when you journal and you write things down, it takes what your unconscious mind felt and it brings it conscious.
Yeah,
So by journaling, it's a really good way to connect the conscious and the unconscious mind because you're writing it down, that makes it conscious. So
right.
it's, meditate for a few minutes every day. And then when you're done, journal about what happened when you were meditating, what came up, what thoughts you had, how you felt, just write all that down. So those are two really good ways, good tools that you can use.
A lot of times I find that a lot of times when I would meditate or I would put music on sometimes and I would put music that was kind of meaningful to my heart that kind of like, seeped down into my emotions. And a lot of times it would bring up a lot of repressed emotions that I didn't even realize. And that's when the thoughts would come and that's when I would start journaling. But it seemed like the music kind of provoked a lot of the thoughts and the emotions when I was listening to it. And then I went through the process of journaling it out and everything.
Yeah, no, that's a great music really helps, especially if it's music that, emotional music or music that has meaning for you, or even just inspirational music. I have an inspirational playlist. I'll send you a link for that later so you can share it. But
Hmm.
it's music that gets me inspired, and I put that on when I'm walking or when I'm, walking the dog or exercising, or just when I feel like I need a boost. It's like a very and the words really do get you thinking. So having music in the background when you're meditating is really good.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Now, when it comes to the unconscious mind and retraining it, what are some things that people could do to learn how to retrain? Because sometimes we get stuck in those old ways and old ways of thinking, old ways of doing things, and you don't, a lot of people refuse to change, and whether it's fear because of the unknown of who they really are going to, learn who they really are, or who are they going to become. How are some of the ways that we can, work on ourselves to retrain the mindset and the unconscious mind?
Again, the first step is recognizing our unconscious mind. There are kind of four voices in your head that talk to you, and three of them are kind of the protection voices that they had a place, but they may not be serving you best. And then the fourth is your intuition. So by recognizing these voices in your head and these thoughts you have, your intuition is the one you want to listen to the most. Your intuition is it's always kind, it's always positive, it's never going to take you down the wrong path. It's always going to do, it's always going to lead you in the right direction. It's never going to be, it might be tough. I mean, it might tell you, it's like a tough coach, but it's not going to, it's never going to be critical. It's never going to be angry towards you. It's never going to be making you feel bad about yourself. It's always going to be positive. It's also the quietest voice for most of us. So what we have to do is really practice listening to it and trying to just, recognize when our intuition is giving us something. Because so many of us, we get that gut feeling, or we get that, oh, I feel like I should do this. And most of the
Yeah.
time we ignore it and we do something else and then we wonder why it didn't work. So that's the voice you want to listen to. The other voices inside your head are your inner critic, and that's the voice that's always telling you all the things you're doing wrong, all the reasons you're not good enough. And that voice is often really loud. So to practice connecting, you need to learn to quiet that voice, maybe give that voice something else to do. Just tell it, thank you for your help. I don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
Really kind of quiet that voice. Then you have your inner child, and that's the childish voice that didn't get what it needs. So it's kind of the one that wants attention. It wants, it throws temper tantrums. It's kind of
Yeah.
your inner 7-year old or your inner 5-year old. And that's another voice that, you need to kind of listen to it and tell it, thank you, but you're okay now. I see you, I hear you, and let that one go aside. And then your
Yeah.
inner ego is the third one, and that's the voice that always wants to be right, that always wants to make sure feel important, and that's the voice that you all that it's kind of saying how great you are. And that's the voice that resists change the most because it feels like, well, I don't want to change. Change is scary. So by kind of hearing these different voices and listening, try to figure out, okay, which voice is that that's talking to me?
Yeah.
And then if it's your intuition, follow it. If it's not, tell it thank you. I appreciate your help, but I'm going to do something different, and just kind of put that aside. And by listening to your intuition is a great way to connect with your unconscious mind and kind of change what your unconscious mind is doing. Because, like I said, your unconscious mind means well. It's trying to protect you,
Hmm.
but often the things that we needed to protect us at one point, we don't need us anymore. When we were a little kid, we might have needed those voices. We don't need them anymore, and
Yeah.
that's why we need to kind of put them aside and always have gratitude because they did help you. But if it's no longer serving you, you need to let it go.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Now, is it good to keep like a daily journal or maybe a gratitude journal and start to really, figure out, who you are and what, what you like about yourself, what's good about yourself, what you think you might need to change, and, what feelings inside you are not serving you well and what feelings are helping you drive to be better and so forth?
Yes, a daily journal and I mean gratitude is a huge thing. I mean, writing down things you're grateful for every day, every morning, things you're grateful for, and every night, what you can celebrate went well during the day. All those things are very positive. They connect you with your subconscious mind. They raise your vibrational energy, which brings in, once you're in a higher energy, you attract other people and other things in higher energy. So the more grateful you are, the more you celebrate things, the more positive you are, the more good things will happen to you. And
Yeah.
that's a good way, a great way to have your unconscious mind actually reach out and have good things come to it.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Now, and this is something we should probably do on a daily basis, correct? We should work on ourselves on a daily basis because some people can get a little lazy and, you do it for one day, you do it for another day, and then, if you don't be consistent, I would assume that it's not going to really work well.
Right. Yeah. The more consistent you are, the better. But also you need to forgive yourself, give yourself grace. If you say I'm going to do this every day, and then you skip a day or two, it's okay. It's not going to kill you. You keep just go back to doing it.
Right.
It's not something where, if you don't do it every day, it's going. So I would try to be as consistent as possible. Yeah, give yourself grace if you don't do it. Sometimes you do get busy, but it definitely taking that time to connect with yourself, to connect with your intuition, to journal, to meditate, all those things, even though they may take, a half hour to an hour out of your day,
Right.
they'll make you more efficient the rest of the day. So they actually are worthwhile and you'll actually save time instead of lose time.
Right. That sounds great. I think it's so important that we work on our mindset. Our mindset, it plays such an important role in how well we do with when it comes to holding ourselves up and becoming the person we want to become. Now, when it comes to fear, why do so many people have a hard time with fear? Like when you talk about fear, that is one thing that catches everybody's ear because everyone has a hard time. I shouldn't say everyone, but most people have a hard time with overcoming fear. And sometimes fear can control your life if you let it. So what's your
It,
intake?
fear definitely can control your life if you let it. And it's one of the hardest things to let go of because fear, you know, letting go of our fears requires us to do something uncomfortable. Like the fear has kept us in a place that's safe, it's kept us in a place that's comfortable and easy, yet it's also limited us. Our fear keeps us from doing things that are going to bring us joy, that are going to bring us more success, that are going to make us happy, that are just going to expand our comfort zone, expand our horizon. Yet getting outside your comfort zone or making your comfort zone bigger is hard. It requires, it's an act of faith, really.
Yeah,
You need to just believe it's going to be better, and fear makes that hard. What really important about fear is you need to recognize your fears and see what they are. Yet it's not enough to just recognize. You have to actually find a way to get through the fear. and to figure out, okay, I fear this. Why do I fear this? And how can I get through it?
Yeah.
And because fear is basically the opposite side of, when fear is holding you back, but the opposite side of fear is success. And fear kind of stops you from doing it. It's like, well, if I do it, I'll be here. But if I don't do it, I stay where I am. So fear is really important. And there are some good exercises and tools to help you face your fear that you can
Right.
do it. But if you don't get over your fears, you're really going to stay where you are. You're going to stay stuck. You're not going to grow, and you're going to be limiting yourself based on those fears, because those fears are what's keeping you where you are, and where you are is often not where you want to be. So
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's so true. That's so true. And what are some good ways of pushing through your fears? Are there certain tactics that work really well? Because a lot of people struggle with this.
right, sure. One thing that's really simple, we all when we have a fear, we always think about, like, what's the worst that could happen, and our mind starts spiraling through all this bad stuff. So if you fear something, or you're trying to do something, you're afraid, or something's holding you back, just turn the question around and ask yourself, what's the best that could happen?
Right.
And when you realize that, like, oh, well, the best that it sometimes just helps you get over the fear, because the good is just so amazing, you're ready to
Yeah.
have it. So that's a real, very easy way. I have another exercise that I like to do with fear. And, if you have a fear about something, I get a piece of paper, write what that fear is, and then write down, like, all the possible things that could happen because of that fear. Like, say you're afraid of flying.
Hmm.
So write down, okay, I'm afraid to fly. So write down all the things that could happen. Plane, I have a panic attack. I have, just for plane crash. I mean, everything possible.
Yeah.
And then after you've made the list, look at those things and ask yourself, what's the possibility that they're going to happen, and rate it like 1 to 10, with 10 being it's definitely going to happen, and 0 being it's not going to happen.
Right.
And when you look at all those things you fear and you rate them, in most cases, only 1 or 2 of them are above 5 on the
Yeah.
probability. Most of them are very low probability. You're afraid of them, but it's a very low probability that's going to happen. So after you rate them all, pick the ones that are the highest, the ones that are above 5. And you basically go through that and say, okay, if this happens, you know, what can I do next? And
Right.
then what can I do? And try to put a plan together. Like, okay, if this happened, how can I handle it? And you kind of, once you realize that, you'll realize that, in most cases you can, okay, this happens and maybe it does this, but we can figure it. It kind of gives you a plan of how you can get through it. And once you've got that all in place, your logical mind is no longer afraid, because you kind of showed it. Okay, well, the chances, I'm afraid of something that's probably not going to happen. And if it does happen, this is what I can do about it. So that's a really
Right.
good exercise if there's something you fear that's holding you back.
I like that. I like that a lot. Now, are there ways when it comes to the subconscious mind, a lot of people say that a lot of times in our dreams, our subconscious kind of works its way through, and sometimes we'll get dreams, and it's really, messages from the subconscious, things that we're getting more in touch with our subconscious while we're in a deep sleep. Are there ways that you could learn about yourself, through, ways to kind of understand the subconscious and what's going on in the subconscious. Maybe, the fear, the things that are leading to the fear. Maybe it was from a childhood trauma. Maybe it was something that, a lot of people tend to, like, when they go through things, they tend to forget it, and they try to push it out, and
Mhm.
they don't even realize that it exists anymore, because a lot of people just push it away so much that it's still in your subconscious. It's still affecting you, like we talked earlier, but it's there. And then some people, they block it out to the point where they don't even remember it anymore, but it's there.
Right. Yeah, no, that's definitely true. A lot of people, most people do. Actually, most of the things that we fear or that limit us come from something, in our childhood, usually between, one and 7 years old. And what when I coach clients, what I do, the first thing we actually do is we go through and we try to figure out what was that root cause, what was that event. And sometimes you can figure it out, but sometimes even if you don't know, your intuition or your subconscious mind may not know exactly what the event was, but it knows something happened at some point. And often, it could be from your childhood. It could even be before. We have, our body or our cells remember things. So sometimes people have a fear or a limiting belief that's generational, comes from, grandparents or great grandparents. But
Mhm.
we try, the first step of any coaching process is to try to figure out what that was. And we go back and use things like hypnotherapy to figure that out. And some different processes to go back and find out what that was so that we can release it. You mentioned dreams, and dreams are very interesting because they do tell us something. It's hard to know exactly what it is, but what I try to do is, often we have these dreams when we wake up in the middle of the night, and then we don't remember, and we have these
Yeah.
very vivid recollections. Then in the morning we don't. So keep a notepad near your bed so that if you do wake up and you have a dream that feels like, something really important, you can at least write down about it.
Yeah.
And then look at it the next day. I've heard people say that one good way to look at dreams is if there are different characters in your dream, go through the whole dream and look at it from each different character's perspective. And sometimes you can see what you're trying to find out. And sometimes it's obvious. Sometimes that you read the dream, like, oh, I've been worried about this. That makes sense. Sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
But it's a good idea to have that because you never know, you might have a dream that you had 6 months ago, and then something happens now and you're like, oh, that dream kind of led me. So that is a way your dreaming is your unconscious mind thinking about things. So there is some meaning. It's just there are people who are experts on it. I've done a little bit of work, but I'm not 100 always clear on what it means. But writing
Yeah.
it down is good to have.
I always find it very interesting because I find like a lot of times a lot of the things that we dream about come from the subconscious mind. So it's really a lot of messages going on. Like you said, we don't really remember a lot of it. We remember very, very little when we wake up in the morning, but there's a lot of information I think that's going on in our head while we're dreaming, while we're, in sleeping and we just don't have the access. When we wake up, it's just, little bits and pieces here we might remember if a dream really had an impact on us.
Yeah, it's funny. I have Matthew McConaughey appears in a lot of my dreams. I'm not sure why. I'd love to figure out what that one means, but I've probably had, in the last couple of years, 5 or 6 dreams with him in it. So
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. I find that having a strong mindset can really change your whole life. It can really put you on the right track. It can strengthen you. It can give you courage. It can help you overcome your fears. It can give you resilience. It can make you look at life more differently, where you start to live life in a different manner. You can, you have the strength to start kicking out those bad habits, putting in the good habits, really, begin to look at people differently and look at yourself differently. Are there ways where people can, now we said journaling, we talked about journaling, we talked about really, having someone guide you through, different parts of our lives. Are there specific types of mindsets that we should focus on if we really want to improve our lives? Is there like maybe, because sometimes people don't know where to begin. Is there somewhere someone should begin?
yeah, I think the best way to begin is really just focusing on positivity and gratitude, and always trying to focus on the best things and the positive things. And because when you look for, I mean, your mindset is really what you look for. That's your
Yeah.
mindset. And when you start, just like any habit, when you can form a new habit, so your mindset can be like a habit. So when you look for, most of us go through life seeing all the negative things that happen. We see all the ways we failed, we see the things that went wrong, and that kind of gets your mindset in that place where you're expecting things to go wrong. So if you start changing that just by, changing your thoughts, changing your language, um, you're recognizing when you're thinking negative or when you're doing something negative, and then don't beat yourself up for it. Thank you. Always be grateful. I'm grateful for that negative thought, yet I don't need that. I don't want to be there. Always speak in positive language. So talk about what you want, not what you don't want. So don't
Yeah.
say, I don't want this. Say, I want this. Talk about stuff like it's already happened. So make your language positive, and then find the positive in everything. There's not really failures. There's not really events. There's only they're all lessons. They're all things you could learn. So
Yeah.
if you think of everything that happens as a gift, and you figure out what can I learn for it. So if something goes wrong, okay, that was a gift. What can I learn from that? That can help me build resilience.
Right.
That can help me learn not to do something different next time. So it's a lesson. Oh, that can help me with compassion. Now I understand how other people feel. And you see those as gifts. That's going to start getting your mindset, in a positive way. And like I said, we talked about meditation and gratitude journals, just being grateful for everything and just looking for the positives in everything can really help get your mindset. And it's just a process of, recognizing when you're going negative, stopping yourself and turning it over, because
Right.
we have no control over what happens to us. We have absolutely no control over outside things,
Yeah.
but we have complete control over how we react to them and what we do with them. So
Right.
just because something happened to us that seems bad, if you just see it as it's not good or bad, it just happened.
Yeah.
And then how you react to it changes. That makes a huge difference. There's a story about this man. They call it, I forget, it's like the farmer, but a farmer, like, his horse ran away, and his neighbors were like, oh, that's terrible. He's like, no, it just is, and then his horse was found, and oh, that's terrible. No, it just is, they talk about how, oh, his son got hurt. And he goes through this whole thing. It just is. And then,
Yeah.
everything bad ended up being something good, and bad ended up being good. And if you just see them all as things that happen, they're not bad or good. They
Right.
just are. And you look inside. So what can I learn from that? What good can I get from that? Then you're always in the positive, and that's a way to have your mindset take, where you want it. And it's a way to get rid of the fear too, because we're fearing things because they're going to be bad. So if nothing's bad or good, it just is, then there's really
Yeah.
nothing to fear.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Now, when it comes to overcoming fear, if you look at it in the ways that you just mentioned, do you think a lot of people would have success in overcoming their fears? Because a lot of people, they struggle, but if they use all these different tools, have you seen people really be able to overcome their fears and face their fears?
I've seen a lot of people be able to overcome their fears and face their fears. And the one the one thing that I've seen between people who have been able to overcome and then people who haven't is a, a belief that they can do it and a willingness to change. So they
Mm.
have to be willing to change and to have an open mind and try something different, even if it's uncomfortable. And they have to have a belief that it's going to work. Because there are people, I have worked with people who come in and they don't really want to change and they don't believe anything's going to work. And if that's your mindset and it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to stay there.
Exactly. 100%. 100%. Now, you wrote a book. Can you tell us about the book that you wrote?
Sure. The book I wrote is called The Reinvention Mindset. I have a copy right here. So,
Mm.
and you can see the mind, what is, I've got the two sides of the mind, and one is flourishing and growing. But the book looks at people who have had horrible things happen to them, and yet they've overcome them, and not just overcome them, but they've gone on to do amazing things like start nonprofits, like write books that affected millions of people, like coach people and help, people transform their lives. And I interviewed a number of these people who reinvented themselves after something tragic
Yeah.
and looked at what they had in common. And they all had a lot of things in common. And so I share their stories, I share my story. So it's an easy to read book. It's a fun book. It's not like a self-help where you have all these steps and all these things you have to do. It's really just
Right.
practical advice on how to have a, that you don't have to wait till something horrible happens to you
Yeah.
to figure this out. You can do it now and live a better life. Yeah, and some of the things they had in common, like belief, they all believed it was possible. They all were willing to ask for help from other people. They believed in a higher power. They faced their fears and were willing to overcome them. So those are some of the things they all had in common. And they're things that anybody could do. Anybody, we all have it inside of us. We could, none of these people were anything special or amazing. They were regular people who just had the ability to react to something in a really positive way. And
Yeah.
instead of seeing it as a negative, saw it as an opportunity.
Right. And that's so important. That's the one thing that I've seen so many people advance in life and grow. It becomes unbelievable contributions to life is because they had that mindset. They didn't look at it as something that held them back. They looked at it as an opportunity to learn, to become resilient, and to be able to grow and figure out ways to help others. And those people flourished. And
Mm-hmm.
it really is so important not to feel that pittiness, not to feel like poor me, but okay, I've gone through this, I've overcome it. Now, what can I do to help the rest of the world or help myself become a better person and grow to become the person I always wanted to become?
Yes,
Now,
that makes so much sense.
where can people find your book?
The book is on Amazon. Just search the reinvention mindset or Lori McDowell, the reinvention mindset. And the audiobook will be out soon, hopefully either before the end of the year or early next year. So I'm excited about that. And also, if you're interested in like getting an autographed copy of the book, you can email me at lmcdowell at reimagine the letter u.net, and I'm happy to send you an autographed copy as well. So, but it is on Amazon. It's both an ebook and a paperback, and the audiobook will be there soon.
Wonderful. I love it. Now, if you had to take today's conversation, you want to really emphasize on some important factors, what are some things you'd like the listeners to understand and learn from?
The biggest thing I would like listeners to understand is that most of the reasons why we get stuck or why we're limited or why we aren't able to achieve things are from inside of ourselves, whether it's our belief system, our fears, our limiting decisions and beliefs. They're all something that we put those limits on ourselves. And there are ways to overcome them. And once, I'm not saying you're going to be guaranteed once you overcome that everything's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
But what happens when you overcome them is whether things are amazing or not, you're still amazing. Your life is still happy. Even
Yeah.
the things outside of you don't affect you. And that's the first step to having this amazing life is when things that happen to you don't change how you feel.
Right.
So you really need to look what's inside and let those things go and turn towards positivity.
I love it. I love it. Now tell us a little about the services that you provide.
Sure. I offer coaching. I do a one-on-one breakthrough session. That's, for one person if they want to do it on their own. It's about a 12-hour coaching session. I offer that. And then I do have a group kind of coaching slash mastermind session that we meet once a week. We have calls and they're a combination of training, hot seat coaching, various different training coaching and some hot seat coaching masterminding.
Mhm.
And that's a 6 month process. It does include the group breakthrough as part of that. So you get that breakthrough session as well.
Right. I love it. I love it. This has been amazing. I thank you so much, Lori, for being on the show today. This is, when it comes to overcoming fear and changing the mindset and looking into our unconscious mind, a lot of people don't understand, and you made it very clear today that, most of the things that affect us in our present tense, comes from the unconscious. And it's really taking the time to understand what's going on in the unconscious. And like you said, you really need someone to help you do that. But once you're able to figure figure out, what in your unconscious mind is causing you to have some of your setbacks, then you can go in and actually change them and overcome them so you can move forward in life. And that's so important when you want to be happy, and it doesn't have to be because you want to grow and elevate to new levels in life. You just want to have joy and happiness in your life. And a lot of times when we're not in our right mindset and we're struggling with fear, and it just brings a sense of unhappiness and a lot of other negativity into our lives. So we want to overcome that because the one thing in life, we want to just live a happy, healthy, productive life. And if we could all have that, the world would be such a great place. And, so I want to thank you for what you do because, it's so important to be able to understand the power of the mindset and to be able to overcome a lot of the things that so many people struggle with in today's society. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Stacey. Hopefully, we've given people some great things they can do today to start living a more joyful, fulfilling life.
Oh, I definitely think we have. And if anyone has any questions for Lori, please feel free to comment in the comment box or contact her on her website. Tell everybody your website so they know where to contact you with any questions if they have any.
Sure, it's reimagineyou.net.
Wonderful. Well, this has been great, Lori. I love having you on the show, and thank you so much for coming on today to share this with us.
All right, thank you, Stacey.
Have a great day.